Once again, good morning or good afternoon to some of you. This is time to begin our third day, and welcome to all our participants of all our AECSD training seminar. Let me remind you about the Zoom features that we use. First of all, you can use simultaneous interpretation. To activate that, you select the language by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen, and you have a choice between English and Russian.
Let me remind you that there is the function of the simultaneous interpretation in Zoom. So please find the globe icon on the panel and choose the English language to listen the whole seminar in English. And now I will switch into Russian. Итак, сегодня мы поговорим с вами. Сегодня пятница. Мы решили в программе.
It's Friday today, and we decided to make our agenda a little bit lighter and shorter, and there will be just 2 sessions. First of all, we will talk about corporate actions and how to automate them. And after a short break, we will cover services involved in accessing foreign markets and also implications for foreign legal system adaptation. We hope that this schedule today will be useful for you. And the first speaker will open our corporate action and automation session. Will be the representative of the Korean Central Depository, Ms. Sarang Lim.
You are welcome to join me online. Hello, Ms. Lin.
Hi.
Welcome to AECSD seminar.
Thanks.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Доброе утро.
Wow.
Good morning. Good morning.
That was perfect.
I'm Sarang Lim from KSD, and it's a great honor to have an opportunity to present today. I will brief you on KSD's role related to corporate actions so that help better understanding in stock market in Korea, as well as KSD's role in it. Here is the overview of the presentation. First, I will explain KSD's role in the capital market. Then I will state various KSD services related to corporate actions. And lastly, a brief explanation on appraisal rights will follow, which I'm in charge of recently. KSD's role in the capital market is divided in 2 parts. One is role as a central securities depository in Korea, which is conventional, and the other is an electronic registry, which is newly added as the electronic securities system is introduced. As a central securities depository, KSD offers substantial and reliable capital market infrastructures, such as solid settlement and clearing system, securities information system, which helps investors to exercise their rights, and so on. Thus, KSD enhances efficiency in primary market as well as the secondary market and contributes to protect investors in capital market. At the same time, KSD is one of the electronic registries which are permitted from the government. KSD has built and developed electronic security system and launched the system on September 16, 2019. As an electronic registry, KSD manages security from its issuance to the expiration in standardized process automatically. As a result, KSD improves market efficiency and saves social cost a lot. Next, let's take a look on KSD's role in corporate actions. As for corporate actions, KSD performs as a central securities depository. Please pay attention to the diagram left, which outlines the whole corporate action process. First, issuers publicly notify corporate action schedules. In most of cases, transfer agents, who are kinds of proxy of issuers, help issuers to plan the schedule and make the relevant documents. Based on the record date issuer has declared, KSD writes register of holders so that the transfer agent can fill in register of shareholders for issuers. Second, shareholders request exercising rights to AMIs, which means account management institutions. Then they file for aggregated rights to KSD. After KSD exercises collected rights on behalf of shareholders to issuers, KSD also delivers results of exercising rights to shareholders through AMIs and make them effective. All of these processes between KSD and AMIs are done through KSD's platform called eSafe, which connects KSD and respective AMIs electronically. Process written in upper right side states KSD's role in the whole process mentioned earlier. For the features of this process, first, KSD supports almost every type of corporate actions to protect investors' interest. Second, centralized corporate actions processed by KSD is efficient to manage data, so that makes it more reliable, simplifies business process of issuers and AMIs, and increases shareholders' convenience as well. Now, I'm going to briefly explain several kinds of KSD services related to corporate actions. Prior to entering, most of services related to corporate actions that KSD provides are based on several laws in Korea, such as Capital Market Act and Commercial Law. First, KSD writes and sends register of holders by collecting shareholders' information from AMIs. Based on this register of holders received from KSD, transfer agent of issuers fill in register of shareholders to determine entitled shareholders for the event. Thus, it is said that every corporate action starts with KSD by drawing up register of holders. Second, KSD supports foreign investors to exercise their voting rights. It is called proxy voting. When issuers hold shareholders meeting to make some important decisions on business, foreign investors are easily able to exercise their voting rights by requesting to KSD. KSD collects foreign investors' votes and attends the meeting or delegates the rights to issuers. Third, all dividends, including cash and stocks, are proceeded through KSD. In case of cash dividends, issuers deposit the amount of money to KSD, and then KSD allocates the proper amount to each AMIs on payment date so that they can distribute dividends to shareholders. For stock dividends, KSD registers and allocates stocks to account books according to the dividends ratio so that they are effective from the listing date. Next is bonus issue. The process for bonus issue operates quite similar with stock dividends. KSD registers and allocates bonus stocks on AMI's accounts, and taxation on bonus stocks depends on the source of capital. Fifth, KSD supports paid-in capital increase. When existing shareholders subscribe for stock offering, KSD takes a role of bridge between AMIs, including shareholders, and issuers, because KSD receives subscription from AMIs, delivers subscription payments, and allocates newly issued stocks. Six, KSD manages untransferred shares as well. Untransferred shares means stocks withdrawn from deposit, but their titles haven't transferred by the record date. KSD also manages interest from untransferred shares such as dividends and bonus stocks. Seventh, KSD helps to secure stockholders' rights in cases of merger, spin-off, stock exchange, and etc. Added to allocating or replacing stocks to AMI's account books according to the ratio, KSD supports shareholders to exercise operational rights, which protects their interest. Lastly, exercising conversion rights on hybrid securities is also handled by KSD. Investors exercise conversion rights arising from convertible bonds or bonds with warrants when they want to convert their bonds to stocks. KSD receives requests from investors and manages registration and distribution of converted stocks. This is the brief statistics on corporate actions in the first quarter in 2021. For companies with a December fiscal year end, we held 34.8 trillion Korean won of cash dividends to be paid timely, 29.8 million of stock dividends to be allocated precisely, and foreign investors to exercise their voting rights on over 2,300 shareholders meetings. As of the end of December 2020, 50% of the number of shares are owned by individual investors, 37% by institutional investors, and 13% by foreign investors. At the same time, we wrote and sent register of holders for about 4,700 issuers and supported over 70 cases of bonus issues and about 20 cases of paid-in capital increases. Also, we handled 50 cases of small-scale merger as well as over 20 cases of operational rights. Thanks to the electronic security system and our perfectly designed platform called eSafe, we can manage enormous cases of corporate actions and keep the capital market efficient and transparent. Now, this is the last part of this presentation. This slide shows the process of operational rights, which is an important tool to protect stockholders' interest when a company makes a critical decision on its business. By exercising operational rights, stockholders request buying the stocks they hold from the company when they oppose the company's decisions. The first case is a typical process of operational rights, and it happens when a company merges other companies, transfers its business, or exchanges stocks with others, and so on. It starts with an announcement of events by issuers. And KSD reviews corporate action schedules and put the data into the system to inform AMIs and shareholders. Then KSD aggregates and delivers shareholders' dissent on the event to issuers so that issuers reflect it to the shareholders' meeting. After the shareholders' meeting, KSD receives shareholders' requests on operational rights in final. Then the amount of stocks and payment for operational rights are fixed. At last, the process on operational rights is finished once shareholders are paid for the stocks sold and stocks are transferred to the company's account. And for sure, the entire process is handled by KSD. The second case seems semi-version of the first case. Please see the diagram below from the right. First, issuers announce events, and KSD confirms schedule and informs AMIs and shareholders of corporate actions. Then KSD receives shareholders' dissent on the event and delivers it to issuers. The biggest difference of the second case from the first is that there is no real appraisal rights, which ask companies to buy shareholder stocks at a ranged price. Although real appraisal rights doesn't occur in this case, KSD makes it easier and more efficient for shareholders to speak out by providing electronic platform. Well, this is the end of my presentation. I really appreciate your time and interest. And if you have any question on this topic, please feel free to email me. Thanks again and hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lim. So thank you for very interesting presentation. And I have a question. So do you use, what kind of channels and standards do you use in terms of the corporate action messages exchange with internal and external clients? So is it ISO 20022, 15022, or is it market standards?
It's a little bit different from Swift. We use our platform called eSafe, and it connects KSD and account management institutions respectively by called maybe CCF, some kind of electronic system. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a nice day. See ya.
Thank you.
Уважаемые коллеги, мы продолжаем наш семинар.
Colleagues, let's continue. We thank our Korean colleagues for the presentation. I remind you that your questions can be addressed to the speakers through the special section, Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. You can receive online and offline questions. There's also the chat section, which you can use to give feedback, to welcome each other, and to communicate on organizational issues and exchange contacts. So we continue, and the second speaker for corporate action session and automation is from NSD, Roman Tokarev, head of corporate action at NSD. By the way, in the chat, we have a link to Russian and English versions of speakers' presentations. Roman will show a presentation in Russian, so please, our English-speaking participants are welcome to use the Russian interpretation. Is my presentation seen? Yes. Yes, we can see it. I will describe the way that NSD exercises corporate action and where we are in terms of automation and what else we need to do in this respect. And I will also tell you a little bit about change management at NSD, how software novelties are put in place and approved. Automation period for corporate action in NSD started in 2014 when NSD digitalized and corporate action information and put it into a cascade process that now information received from issuers is delivered to NSD in machine readable form and then cascaded to market participants. At the same time, we established a cascade process for proceeds payment on the shares and bonds. All the money went from the accounting infrastructure and cascaded all the way to the final investor or beneficial owner. The next stage was so-called corporate action reform. This is when Russia implemented an important change in legislation that happened in 2016, which made it possible to put voluntary corporate action into cascade, such as meetings of shareholders and bondholders, buyback and third-party purchase, and the preemptive rights. As part of this reform, NSD transferred to international standards, ISO 20022, and in fact, we put into one system, or unified all standards and information delivery methods throughout the Russian securities market. Since that reform, our efforts towards automation and improvement of infrastructure has continued, and there are still some corporate actions which are yet to be fully automated and to be put under ISO format. Since 2016 and up to now, we have automated a number of corporate actions, which I will describe later. This is what reform has done. To the left, you see the before situation, before 2016, when the shareholder and issuer were communicating directly. In many cases, that involved paper document flow, such as voting ballots were physically delivered to the shareholder. You had to also provide a paper power of attorney because the issuer had to confirm the authority of the individual who participates in the corporate action. This procedure was costlier for both Russian and international investors and prevented their access to the Russian market. After the reform, the information and voluntary CA instructions have become cascaded, and it involves a link involving a registrar and lower in registries and depositories, and all corporate actions are now exercised in a single format, which is approved by all market players in a standard manner. And the NSD has become the official source of corporate information. That is, all corporate information on securities, issuers, and other suppliers of information is accumulated by NSD, which publishes this on the website. And NSD, in this case, acts as official information source, such as a golden entry. This is a schematic diagram of how market participants interact in terms of corporate action. To the left, you see sources of information such as AECSD or global custodians, where NSD holds foreign securities, including Clearstream. Then there are Russian legal entities and Russian securities, and with AECSD we communicate through SWIFT channels, ISO 15022. This is here to the left. As for issuers, registrars, and the information agents, there are two ways: through NR Direct, which is in fact a web interface, which enables them to see balances on securities accounts, see forthcoming corporate actions, and also allows for participation by communicating or instructions. Said NRD is in effect an API which allows for interaction between the registrars and NSD. This uses ISO 2022 format, and this is bilateral traffic of messages, that is STP, without any manual input. Having received information on forthcoming corporate action, NSD then distributes it. First of all, it publishes it on its website, and then using the same formats 20/22 and 15/22, it distributes information to its clients, depositories, and market participants. The same channels are used, a SWIFT and are direct, or it can be STP communication can also be tuned in with lower depositories. There are certain advantages from standardization of channels of information for corporate action. First of all, it makes the functioning of the securities accounting system more transparent and more efficient, because all information is distributed in a centralized manner, and it is structured and is subject to automation in terms of how you receive information, put it into database, process information, or use it for analytical purposes or for operational purposes. And obviously, this is much more efficient compared to receiving information in a non-machine readable code, Flash HTML. But of course, for the convenience of market participants, we also implement a visualized forms for corporate actions, which enables the operator to read it, understand what it means, and then make certain decisions. We have developed a single platform for corporate action. In this case, NSD is the central point in the chain, which has developed both formats and communication channels. Another advantage of this structure is that we provide a guaranteed settlement system. For example, in the case of securities repurchase by the issuer, the shareholder will not have securities withdrawn until the issuer delivers cash to NSD in settlement. So the DVP principle is used, delivery versus payment. So securities are withdrawn and the shareholder receives cash. Another goal for us is to introduce international standards for corporate action, 15/22 and 20/22, gradually, step by step, all global custodians, central depositories, and the whole structure is migrating towards the more advanced 20/22 format. As of today, just like many other market participants, we support both formats, the new one and the old one, just for convenience, so that all the market participants can have all their needs covered. Also, the changes that were implemented serve to minimize the risks involved in manual information input, minimize manual work generally by operators. So as we have automated and are in the process of automating as many processes as possible to avoid errors or incorrect information entry. This is a summary of what we have done in terms of automation. Informational corporate action under ISO 20/22 and 15/22 formats. We've introduced a cascade process for meeting information, notification, and e-proxy voting when the shareholder participates in the meeting by instructing the depository, and the depository then delivers the instruction to the issuer through the chain. The NSD also developed a platform for voting. In this way, they bypass the chain of their depositories, which is a more convenient service that the NSD offers to its issuers, to the issuers. The process of repurchase and the preemptive rights were also automated. We recently launched a single format for disclosing information on shareholders when the law requires that this information be disclosed. We had also a big project to automate corporate action involving foreign securities kept in Clear and Clearstream, and we also automated some mandatory corporate action under the conversion category. And these are things that are yet to be done. There are a number of legislative initiatives which are in process now, and these draft laws are aimed to better exercise the rights of shareholders, better inform shareholders about the corporate actions. The new resolution will replace the existing regulation by the central bank describing how issuers must inform their shareholders about planned or forthcoming corporate actions. This means that we also have to amend our existing formats and processes, because the new law will introduce a number of new codes, and the structure of messages will also change somewhat. Also, our future plans in the immediate future include completing the project for corporate action automation, such as reorganization, mergers and acquisitions, and spin-offs. In this way, information from registrars will be received by NSD in a structured way and under ISO formats to avoid manual entry of corporate action data, and so that this information can be delivered to the market in the same structured format. Another initiative is tax agencying under the code BPUT. BPUT is activated when the issuer buys back or calls, or there is a call on bond. And the idea is that the issuer would provide NSD with additional information on the payment of cash or redeemable bond, and the issuer will be able to provide NSD with more detailed information on tax rates in the case when the amount paid or payable to investor is subject to different exchange rates, depending on whether it's par value or coupon income, etc. And also there is adaptation in view to European regulations, the so-called SRD2, which aims to further improve the mechanism for information disclosure with respect to shareholders on the European market. That directive is already in force, but just because some major market players, including Euroclear and Clearstream, are still in the process of updating their formats to comply with this directive, we face a somewhat late start, and NSD is getting ready for that as well. So under this directive, the process of collecting holders lists will be updated, and we will move to using 2021 instead of 15021, which is used by global custodians even now. Also, the process of shareholder meeting notification will be updated, and the process of completing the list of participants. And these are standard automation steps in NSD. In fact, NSD has adopted a single standard for any changes that are exercised, not only for corporate action. This is a more general and standard process which concerns any new initiative whenever software needs to be changed or upgraded. So in the first stage, the task is set to the responsible units. If this involves interaction with our clients, the NSD will set up working groups to discuss the anticipated changes. For this purpose, we have specially established committees that may suggest any relevant changes or amendments. If it's about formats changed, they must be agreed with the clients. We normally start this process at least half a year before, normally a year before. If those changes can also be associated with new legislation and the automation which I mentioned before, such as reorganization of joint stock companies, or for example, we will automate the dividend information process, in which case new formats will have to be agreed with our clients. As a next step, we define the business requirements, and this is done on the IT side, when the analysts who are responsible for the process translate the task into the language which is usable for automation. If needed, we develop a flow chart, meaning that if the process is complex, we need to make sure how all the participants will interact from entry point to exit point, which are the stages which the instruction will go through or a report will go through. Then analysis takes place, followed by development and testing. These are all standard stages in any change management process. Then it comes to test operation, when the complete functionality is tested in business units, when our employees test how the new functionality works to see how it will work in real life. In this stage, they identify any errors which are corrected, and then they also are trained to use it. Also, external testing is done with our shareholders in a test mode as well, so that the customers, the clients could also find any flaws in that. So before we make the final launch, we could put everything right. That's all. Thank you for attention, and I'm ready for your questions. Thanks a lot, Roman. Very, very concise presentation. You tell us a lot about automation and processes which are involved, and I'm sure colleagues will find it useful. We have not received any questions yet, but if we have any questions, please stay online and we will come back to you. See you later. And now we continue, and the next speaker will be representative of the National Depository of Ukraine, Olga Bajinova. Good morning. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Yes, your presentation is very clearly seen. Welcome you at our seminar. I'm Olga Bajinova, head of the client service unit of the Central Depository of Ukraine. The presentation will tell you about the new possibilities given by the depository to securities owners in terms of corporate action. In 2018, the Central Depository set up a modern, quick and reliable remote service system, which is implemented as a web application. It uses qualified electronic signature and stamp. More than 70% of active clients have opted for this client channel of communication with the central depository. The web interface, 80% of corporate action is processed through the web service. We work on expanding the web service functionality expansion so that all the operations are digitalized. From the 1st of July, IC code will be accessible also through the web interface. Now, these are the opportunities that the client has. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, hours a day, 7 days a week. They have access to the documents which they generated. They can deposit global certificates. You can place notifications on revenues, proceeds. They can also place the statements and inform shareholders on corporate actions and do many other things. Like in many other countries, we are under quarantine for more than 1 year, and the current law on corporate action requires that we continue to hold annual shareholders meeting. But the lockdown took us by surprise, and sometimes it is impossible to meet personally. Last year, the law was put in place enabling remote shareholder meetings. This, since the law was put in place, in about 45 days, we developed a format for remote meetings so that corporations and investment funds can do that. And these are the services that the Central Depository provides, such as notification through the depository system, generation of owners list who are notified about the meeting, and the list of eligible participants, and special web service for remote support of general meetings. More than 60 general meetings have been carried out through us, and to understand, for the understanding of the clients, we to make the clients understand how it is done, we have implemented webinars and training sessions more than 5 times, and the clients have appreciated the convenience. Another new thing, Ukraine now has in place a new law on capital and organized markets, which specifies how bond holders must be held. Since the 1st of July, all such meetings must be remote and exercised through the automated electronic system. This is our in-house hardware and software system, which is also authorized by the National Securities Commission, which meets the requirements for bondholders meetings. The system ensures that the participants and holders of securities can be identified and registered. Also, availability of all documents that participants in the meeting can view before the meeting. It also ensures voting and decision making and debate on the agenda and automated vote counting and formulation of decisions. Shareholder meetings will be covered by the following tools, or the following instruments: corporate bonds, internal local bonds, domestic bonds, which will be covered since the 1st of January, also mortgage bonds and mortgage bonds issued by international financial organizations. This will ensure that the key decisions will be made by the bond owner. To promptly respond to corporate actions, such meetings can be organized at very short notice. To the right, I have listed the opportunities which the issuers are given. For example, possibility to amend the prospectus and change the issue dates and maturities, denomination, and determining the list of persons who can be given collateral. All these changes can be made by issuers and owners or administrator who can be appointed by bondholders for the purpose of exercising their rights. In order to participate in the meeting, the bondholder will just enter the web page in the automated electronic system and just vote. All the functionality of the electronic system was fully designed and developed by the central depository team. This is a huge work. It is based on up-to-date data protection technology, and this is a major step towards the introduction of the nationwide system of electronic shareholders meetings. And this is how the bond owners meeting takes place. The person responsible for the meeting goes into agreement with the central depository. This is a physical person who is authorized to access the electronic system, and that person will create the meeting and manage it. The central depository, in this case, is the technical administrator of the system, providing the service to the responsible person. Depository institutions, in this case, may be representatives of proxies of the bondholders, while the bondholder provides to the deposit institution information on its proxy or votes independently or through the proxy. From the 1st of July, there will be amendments also to the process, which involves messages delivery through the depository system. This is related to what I said before about the bondholders meetings, but the new participants are added to that and new types of movements. As of today, we have a link which operates since 2017 between the issuer and the bondholder for notification of corporate actions. For example, notification through the depository system is done on the forthcoming shareholder meeting. This year, notifications on almost 300 securities issues were delivered through the system. The new law will introduce the shareholder rights directive compliance, and also there will be 3 notification types. The first type is not much different from what we have now, but it has some additional types of participants, including the administrator or issuer's representative, who uses the system to notify the ultimate beneficiary of the proposed corporate action. This arrangement is represented here. The second arrangement is backwards from holder to the issuer. When the issuer delivers order for notification to the issuer through the central depository. When the holder, for example, wants to amend the agenda of the meeting, then the depository institution sends to the central depository of Ukraine an order to deliver this message to the issuer or to the other owners. And this arrangement will be operational since the 1st of July. The first type implies a situation when the client of central depository wants to send certain notification through the depository system to another depository system client. And in this case, it is the central depository that delivers the notification to the final addressee. Who can use this service? The person responsible for the meeting, shareholders and bondholders, holders of more than 25% of bonds, who can notify either the administrator or the persons who collateral. And there are not, these are the lines along which notices can be sent. For example, bondholders can notify the issuer, the administrator, and the person responsible for the meeting. We have tested new functionality that will operate through the client web interface, and we from the 1st of July, this will be put into actual operation. And the last piece of news, something unusual and new that we have, a new instrument, that is bank deposit certificate. In Ukraine now, you can issue a special type of non-tradable security, which is savings certificate. It stays with the bank. It's not very popular in Ukraine, but in a week from now, the bank certificates will become an issuable paper and will be registered not by the Securities Commission, unlike others, but by the central depository. And it can be traded in the secondary market, including an organized market. They will be recorded in the depository system, and the income will be paid also through the depository system. So how are the bank certificates issued through the depository system? The issuer goes into agreement with the Central Depository of Ukraine. It receives the AECSD or LEI code, unless they already have it. And if they have public offering, the issuer places the order for bank certificates through our online web service. The Central Depository transfers the certificates to investors or depository institutions. Then the issuer has the global certificate issued, and it is registered by the central bank. The issuer places the order for issue redemption, and the central depository can exercise a partial redemption on the initiative of the issuer if the issue was not fully placed by the issuer. Bank certificates constitute a totally new instrument for us. It would be interesting to know if other depositories work with that or not. It is convenient and quick in terms of purchasing and secondary placement, including through organized trading What is also interesting, the issue is registered by the central depository in just one day, which is very quick. Bank certificates can be interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. Income payment, settlement, and redemption can be all done through the depository system, and the registration will be all done by the central depository. That's all on my part, and I wish all of us to go from lockdown as soon as possible. Well, I like working from home because my lunch is always the best I can have, and my contact details are here on the last page. Thank you, Olga. Very interesting. I also wanted to ask you a question on the formats that you use. Are they internal formats or ISO? These are internal standards which our software uses, but also ISO 15022. And we have also online service, which is used by our client web interface. Another question, does the National Depository of Ukraine also perform the function of registry, or other separate registry institutes? No, it's only us. Yes, so you centralize the registration service as well. Right. Thank you for these responses and for your presentation as well. We were happy to have you with us. Have a nice day, and we'll see you later. Now, colleagues, who have approached the end of our first session, we're now taking a small coffee break, just 10 minutes. Let's reconvene at 10 past 11 Moscow time, and we will start the next session, which will be on services for access to foreign markets and adaptation for foreign legal systems. See you back at 11:10 Moscow time.
Уважаемые участники, я предлагаю потихонечку возвращаться к экрану.
Colleagues, it's time we resume our work. Please get back to your screens. We're about to resume, and let me remind you that you have interpretation function available for you. You activate it by clicking on the globe sign, globe icon, and you can choose between Russian and language and English language. And if you have any questions to speakers, you do it through the Q&A section, and you also have the chat possibility where you can give your feedback, exchange contacts with other colleagues, and address any organizational issues. In the second session, we will talk about services which support access to foreign markets and adaptation to foreign law. We have presented from central depositories of Korea, Russia, and Ukraine. We start with Andrei Tkachov, who represents the central securities depository of Russia. Are you with us? Yes. I'm Andrei Tkachov. Hello. At NSD, I'm responsible for issuer contacts, for serving issuers, and for domestic placement of securities.
Презентация наша, ну, так как Собственно, основная цель моего сегодняшнего рассказа — это затронуть
Today, my goal is to cover the topic of foreign issuer being served by the Moscow Exchange and the NSD for the purpose of securities placement. We already have some successful cases of that. Our colleagues from Kazakhstan and Belarus have done some security placements with us. So I will try to give you some understanding, just to make sure that you see that it's not really so difficult. It is quite possible, and issuers successfully enter our market, can find the Russian investors and use the services of the central depository
в целом.
as
Соответственно,
well as the Moscow Exchange as such.
плюсы того, что эмитент может воспользоваться
The benefits of using our services by the issuer proceed from the fact that the NSD has an extended correspondent network, both for cash settlements and for registration services. We have bilateral relations with almost every single central depository, and we also have bilateral relations with European depositories, and systems, Euroclear and Clearstream, which opens up the possibility to connect with the foreign investor. So Euroclear and Clearstream have accounts with us as clients and can place securities which have been placed in Russia to their accounts and make settlements with non-residents. The network of issuers can also use, if needed, they can use NSD accounts for their purposes, for cash payments. They can use either ruble accounts or multi-currency accounts. Again, colleagues from Kazakhstan and Belarus have already placed their securities. That was from the ministries of finance as well as corporate issuers. And I will tell you about the process a little bit more. For the foreign issuer to enter the Russian market, certain conditions must be met. Number one, the issuer must be eligible under the federal law number 39, that is Article 51.1, which describes how issuers can access Russian markets. The law specifies the categories of issuers which are eligible and specify what needs to be done. Also, the requirements with respect to securities, if the issuer wants not only to place the securities in Russia, but also have them traded on exchange, that is to list the security on the Moscow Exchange. One of the key criterion for that is to have the prospectors registered. This is what the law requires. So the issuer must prepare a prospectus and have it registered with the Bank of Russia. In parallel, if needed, they also can go into agreement with the Moscow Exchange. And we, as central depository, accept the security for service, and we support the placement. As of the date of placement, the security must be assigned the ISIN and the CFI codes. This is done by the issuer as well. We have the codes assigned, and those codes are then communicated to the Bank of Russia. And then directly in communication with NSD, the issuer enters into depository services agreements and issue the account. Also, enter into electronic communication agreement, we open an account for them for the new security, from which the security will be distributed to investors. In general, we already have some options to choose from as they place the securities. These all were already tested by our colleagues, issuers. So we can either limit the issue to the Moscow Exchange platform or implement a multi-point placement, including both the Moscow Exchange and the local exchange of the issuer country. To make sure it happens, the issuer goes into contract with the Moscow Exchange concerning the listing of the new security. Also, the security is given access as well to the issuer's own country's security. When the placement takes place, there are two iterations for the issuer to complete. First, to have the security enter the Moscow Exchange. This is how it looks. The issuer's account is given access to the Moscow Exchange, and with the participation of Russian agents who can access organized trade platform, sales offers can be placed through those agents. The issuer can participate in Moscow Exchange trading and place a certain amount, a certain number of securities on the exchange. The local exchange securities depository, which will also be involved, will open the account with NSD as well. In many cases, such secure settlement depositories are the central depositories of the respective country, or sometimes it can be a separate company which will open a nominee account with NSD. On the placement date, they receive a depository transfer from the issuer for the certain number of securities. We transfer those to the local exchanges settlements depository, which exercises this settlement. This option was tested between us and Kazakhstan. It was all quite successful. No stop factors or no stumbling blocks were found. As soon as the securities are distributed throughout the trading sections and end up in the holders' accounts, the clearing takes place. After clearing, the issuer always receives a report from our exchange as well as our system on any transfers that were made. All the information support that the issuer needs to successfully complete the placement is always available to the issuer, so that the issuer can at any time see what is happening, the number of securities that were placed, etc. So normally within a single banking day, you can have your securities transferred from one exchange to another. For example, if the issuer sees that the demand for the security may be higher at some other exchange, within just one business day, the securities can be transferred from the Moscow Exchange trading section to the nominee account of the local exchange. Further servicing of the security involves payment process. NSD since 2019 uses cascade payments when the issuer has a cash account opened with NSD, which exclusively is used for cash payments. A few days before the payment, the issuer makes a transfer with an explanation of the purpose of the payment and the which coupon or which security is involved. And one day before the payment date, we pull up the depositors who are to receive the funds, and we pay on the payment date. It is cascade because the payment is done based on the number of securities in accounts. This means that we do not provide analysis. We do not separate the funds at this stage, and they receive the nominee holder receive funds based on the number of securities, and each depository in the lower levels will do the same cascading process. So within one day, normally the cash funds will be delivered to the investor. Now, colleagues, I tried to avoid going into the legal language because the law hasn't a lot of it, and that's more or less all on my part. If you have any questions, please, they are welcome. Thank you, Andrei. I'm sure your presentation will be useful to all the colleagues. Thank you for your participation, and see you later. Thanks, colleagues, and I wish you a good end of the day, good Friday and weekend. If you have any questions, you can use the Q&A section, and you can use the chat for comments. The next speaker is from the Korean Central Depository, Ms. Dami Kim.
Ms. Kim, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to AECSD seminar.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Good morning and good afternoon, AECSD members. I am Dami Kim, Assistant Manager of Global Planning Department at Korea Securities Depository. It is a great honor to make a presentation to such a distinguished audience today. It's a pity that we can't be together in person, but from a glass half perspective, it's a great that we still have this chance to meet. I sincerely hope that this seminar will make us feel more closer and give us opportunity to learn from one another. Now, let me start my presentation. The title of my presentation is KSD for Overseas Investment. Well, yeah, it's about investment. You know, while working in this field, one of the most frequently asked questions is this. Hey, Dami, you have some information, right? Then please tell me what stock to buy. Whenever I'm faced with such a situation, I just show them my pathetic brokerage account balance without saying anything. Then they never ask me again. Yes, obviously, working for KSD couldn't make me investment genius, but it gives me strong pride in the fact that we are contributing to a reliable and safe investment market. It's like we are kind of like a guardian of the market. When it comes to the overseas investment, that aspect especially stands out. So during my presentation, I'm gonna share some insights on how KSD acts as a guardian of overseas investment by walking you through our various global services. During my brief presentation, first, I'll introduce our cross-border settlement and deposit services. Then I'll give you some detailed explanation on our DR and KDR services. Thirdly, I'll outline some other cross-border services we provide. Then, last but not least, I'll finish my presentation with our future plans. Okay, first part. In this part, I focused on our cross-border settlement and deposit services. let's see how KSD guarantees the freedom of investment. Let me start with a quick question. Have you ever tried investing in foreign markets? Actually, overseas investment is booming in Korea currently. The case in point is Tesla. Due to its incredibly high returns, it was even called Godzilla, in the sense that it deserved to be praised like a god. In the beginning of this year, Korean investors heavily invest in Tesla with their combined share value surpassing $10 billion. As such, overseas investment is no longer the exclusive area for professional investors. Thanks to the edge information technology, common people from teens to seniors now have easy access to overseas investment. And fierce competition among securities firms attributed to the advances in offshore brokerage services. As a result, overseas securities trading volume peaked at over $157 billion in the first quarter of this year, up by 75% from last year. Definitely, that's a rapid increase. You know, rapid increases often lead to instability. However, Korean investors do not hesitate to expand their portfolio more wider. How could they do that? I believe you could guess. Yes, because there is KSD for Korean investors. I'm going to move on to the next picture to give you more details. First, I'll show you basic settlement flow. Let's say Tammy, who lives in Korea, wants to buy some Apple stocks. The first thing she has to do is placing a trade order to a domestic broker in Korea. And then the domestic broker would relay this order to a local broker in the United States. At this time, the domestic broker should notify the local broker of the transaction details, along with the fact that this settlement will be carried out by KSD. This way, the local broker and the global custodian appointed by KSD can complete the transaction locally. Well, at this point, cautious investors might be curious. How and where my securities would be kept? Well, that brings us to the next slide. To address this problem, we have introduced distinctive and effective structure shown in this picture. Under this structure, all overseas securities of domestic investors are kept in the KSD's account opened in global custodians. So investors can reach multiple overseas markets on a single path. Accordingly, investors can be guaranteed three of the most important things in investment. Yeah, that's right. Convenience, stability, and low cost. Okay, then how about rights exercising? Language and legal differences could be major obstacles in overseas investment. But Korean investors don't have to worry about them. As you can see in this picture, KSD secures all the corporate action-related information derived from the foreign issuers as the nominee of securities. This structure enables domestic investors to exercise their rights without dealing with overseas institutions. Now, let's look from the perspective of issuers. In this part, I'd like to talk about how KSD supports companies expanding across the borders. Domestic markets are always too small for companies eager to grow. In that respect, depository receipts, in short DR, is one of the most powerful and efficient instruments to expand their presence worldwide. It can be proven by the fact that several leading Korean companies, including Samsung Electronics, have already issued DRs. But it may still sound least familiar to some of you, so let me elaborate on it a little bit. To put it simply, you can think DRs as the estranged twin of ordinary shares. They have similar values and similar characters, but they were born and raised in other countries. Does it sound a little weird? Then let me just show you how DRs are issued initially. It begins with entering into the deposit agreement between an issuer and their depository. Then, the their depository appoints a local custodian to deposit underlying shares. KSD is the local custodian in this process. So when we confirm the receipt of the shares to the depository, they issue and distribute shares to the investors. Okay, now you know what DR is. Then why DR? What are the benefits of DR issuance? Well, we can find the benefits of DR issuance from 2 points of view: issuers and investors. First, what benefits could issuers enjoy by issuing DRs? Most importantly, it enables issuers to raise more capital by tapping into the global market and attracting investors around the world. It can aid the companies that are not able to be listed directly in foreign markets. Then how about their investors? DRs allow investors to invest in the foreign company while trading in a local stock exchange in their home country. It means they don't need to worry about international trading policies or legal language differences. Once the DR program is in place, investors can convert DRs into shares at any time and vice versa. These kinds of trades are largely carried out for arbitrage trades. In this process, we act as an intermediary between the domestic agent and the DR depository to match the transactions and manage the book entry of the shares. Good. Let's now move on to the rights exercising of DR holders. Although DR investors invest in a foreign company, they can still enjoy the same rights as shareholders. As you can see in the left picture, DR holders can exercise their rights through their depository, and we deliver these instructions to issuers as a proxy. It is possible because we have entered into a proxy agreement with their depository. Also, as shown in the timeline on the right, when a company pays dividends, we withhold taxes and exchange the remainder into the target currency. Well, so far, we have looked into how KSD supports domestic companies to raise overseas funds. Then, how about foreign companies? How KSD can support them? Can you guess? Yes, DR is also the solution for those companies. In this case, it is called KDR, Korean Depository Receipts. In this situation, KSD acts as a depository bank to issue and deposit KDRs. KDR issuance minimizes the problem of legal conflicts between countries through the elaborately constructed terms and conditions. Now, let's move on to our other global services. First, I'd like to give you an overview of the inter-CSD linkage service. Currently, JustTech is the only CSD linked with us. Through this structure, securities can be freely traded in Japan while actually being held in Korea. This unique structure allows low cost and high efficiency transactions. The most featured part is that investors can request to migrate their securities to another country for arbitrage trade. Next, let's take a look at agent services for overseas bonds. On behalf of the companies that issued overseas bonds, such as convertible bond, bond with warrants, or exchangeable bond, KSD acts as an agent supporting exercise rights of bondholders. Since we also act as a CSD of the shares linked to these bonds, the time required for stock delivery to investors can be shortened. This can benefit investors by increasing liquidity of their funds and reducing the risk from stock price fluctuation. Third, the standing proxy service. This usually combines with other custody services and yields synergies. We provide a wide range of proxy services from investment registration to withholding tax. Our proxy service is featured by high efficiency as our essential role is CSD. Well, I'm now approaching the end of presentation. Today, we have shared some insights on how KSD supports investors and companies pioneering overseas markets. Let me briefly summarize what we have covered today. First, our cross-border deposit and settlement services allow domestic investors access the wider investment opportunities. Second, we provide both custody and depository services for their issuers to help them access the overseas capital. Third, we make constant efforts to contribute to the development of the global financial market by making the most of the functions as a CSD. This leads to my final point, our future plans. For the moment, we are focusing on expansion and improvement of overseas securities services such as collateral management or lending service. Other than that, a sponsored DR and or CSD linkage with other countries is under discussion. However, we don't put limits on ourselves, but always pursue new businesses. And I believe that we can create a lot of synergy for our mutual growth by building strong partnership. For that, I hope the bonds between us as the guardians of the global investment markets will be strengthened through our continuous interaction. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you all in person in the near future. Stay safe and wishing all the best for you. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, Ms. Kim. That was a brilliant presentation. I should admit that. So thank you. That was very interesting and informative. No questions from the audience at the moment. If there are any, we will contact you accordingly. Thank you and stay safe and have a nice day ahead. Коллеги, а мы продолжаем. И следующим спикером...
Our colleagues, we continue with the next speaker, who is Alina Ertman from NSD. Alina, are you with us? Yes, I'm here. Good morning, good afternoon.
Пока напоминаю, что есть секция вопросов-ответов.
In the meanwhile, let me remind you that you have a Q&A section to address your questions to the speakers, and you have the chat window to exchange contacts with your colleagues, leave feedback, and address your organizational issues. Alina, it's all yours. Hello, I'm Alina Ertman. I work at the head the product development support section at NSD. I will talk about services offered in the global markets. First, I will cover transactions and individual accounts at NSD. I'll talk about some things throughout CIS, fund set platform, and I will also conclude by touching upon tariffs involved in transaction securities. First, AECSD settlements. This covers settlements with counterparties at Euroclear and Clearstream, settlements on trades with counterparties in remote markets, and the possible transactions types are FOP and DVP. NSD also provides clients with opportunities to perform their trade transactions with securities on local markets using NSD, Clearstream, and Euroclear. On the slide, you also see the list of serviceable markets and eligible currencies. Additionally, we provide services such as corporate actions processing, tax benefits or exemptions provision for securities issued in the US and other countries, possibly. Also, there's an option to open individual accounts and to exercise back-to-back settlements and the prioritization of settlement instructions. In order to sign up, you need, for FOB transactions, you open the trustee, owner, or nominee securities account. In the case of DVP, and additionally, you will need to have a bank account and have your bank details registered. For the execution of the trade in DVP, you don't have to open respective sections in a depot account. If it involves the operator, you need to additionally appoint the account operator or operator of a depot account section. In this case, it is the operator who will open the NSD bank account and initiate the registration of bank details registration. If you now look at individual AECSD accounts, this allows for settlement, opening of separate accounts with the NSD for clearing. So following types of settlements are offered: settlement with counterparties at Euroclear Bank, settlement of trades with through the bridge settlement, Euroclear and Clearstream, and local market settlements. Again, there's a possibility to both FOB settlement and DVP settlement. Eligible securities are foreign securities which are accepted for service at Euroclear and NDS. The following advantages are provided: segregation of assets and the possibility to find the cash account not for the full amount of the trade, but for the difference between the receipts and deliveries. The shortage of asset will not prevent giving instruction to the AECSD. Securities are not blocked, and you can also give prioritization for instructions, and there are links transactions. Next, transactions at of CIS countries. NSD has opened a nominee account with the Kazakhstan's central depository. This account allows NSD the clients to have Kazakhstan issuer securities accounted for in their accounts. As of today, NSD accepts the zero coupon government bonds of Kazakhstan Republic. They can be placed in the accounts of owner, trustee, nominee, a foreign nominee accounts. Kazakhstan securities can be used for, can be transferred both within and between custody accounts, and also they can be accepted for custody or withdrawn from custody. Again, both FOB and DVT options are available. NSD also holds an account with Armenia CSD. It accepts Armenia issuers securities, those who have agreement with central depository. Securities can be held at securities, can be held at the accounts of owner, trustee, nominee, or foreign nominee. Also, over-the-counter traded securities are eligible. The NSD has a correspondent depot account with the Central Depository of Belarus, which allows for holding shares and corporate bonds of Belarus issuers. That is government securities. As for corporate securities, this is addressed on a case-to-case basis. And the only possibility is the owner securities account. As of today, transactions can be executed only on the FOB basis. The next section is FundSettle platform. FundSettle is a Euroclear specialized platform that provides one-stop access for all agents, transfer agents, and clients of Euroclear for the purpose of settlements with foreign investment funds. Transfer agent in this case is a person appointed by the fund for administration, registry maintenance, processing of instructions and informations, corporate action instructions. Last year, NSD linked to the FundSettle platform, and as of today, we are planning a pilot launch of the service for a focus group of clients. This pilot launch will be based on individual agreements with the clients and with some limitations on eligible securities. The following transactions are possible in FundSettle: acquisition, sale or repurchase, switch of foreign shares, and credit and debit of foreign shares. This is the structure of accounts which are used. With NSD, the client can use the depot account, while it has also a separate omnibus account for FundSet with Euroclear. The transfer agent will have to open separate accounts depending on the requirement of the transfer agent itself. As part of the pilot issue, NSD only plans to open omnibus accounts of transfer agents. My final point here is the tariffs charged for safekeeping of foreign securities. This slide lists the tariffs for bonds which are held at international depositories, the first column. There's also the second column is for CIS countries, for instruments which are registered with central depositories other than bonds is the third column. For foreign investment funds, the charge is according to column number 3. This is for securities other than bonds registered with foreign depositories. That's all on my part, and I can take your questions now. Alina, thank you. It was very, very clear. You explained it all in a very good manner. As of now, we don't have any questions from the audience, and wish you a good end of the day. The next speaker in this session will be from the National Depository of Ukraine, Olga Dolgopolova. Please, Artyom, share Olga's presentation with us. And in the meanwhile, let me remind you about the option to use the chat window to say welcome to each other and to provide your feedback. And you can use Q&A section to address a question to the speaker. Olga? Hello, colleagues, and welcome. I will not take up much of your time because we're moving towards the end of the seminar, and it's Friday and it's so hot. I think as well as in most of your countries. Let's switch to the next slide. It's just an overview. The National Depository of Ukraine was set up in 2007. Initially became received the status of a central depository in 2013, and also since 2007 we gradually moved into the business of servicing foreign securities as well. And we have an account with the Austrian Central Depository. We went through a long process of closing accounts. It was a long story because in our country there have been and still exist certain restrictions on the accessibility to the domestic market for foreign securities. So, but we have this function, but it's every time decision is made on a case-by-case basis, and the authorities apply certain criteria when deciding to allow or not to allow foreign securities on the domestic market. Since 2019, we had some progress. The Commissioner for Securities has issued new regulations, and we also received a rating from Thomas Murray, and that was an important step in terms of investor convenience and investor confidence. Also in 2019, we issued a new we put into operation a new IT platform provided by external vendor, which is Percival, and that was an important step to introduce European standards on our market. We provide services related to foreign securities, including payment of income and corporate action. And also the one particular service is the assistance in receiving access to trade platform within the country. This is the volume of total value of foreign securities which are registered with us as of the end of May 2021. That is about 46 million US dollars. So after the legislation was liberalized, we had the number of accounts opened to allow foreign securities on the market. We have accounts with the Belarus colleagues, and we also have a Clearstream account that we use a lot. Here, this shows how we are connected with quite a large number of markets through Clearstream. The most popular ones are the United States and Europe. And now to the main part, and here I will go into somewhat into detail. Foreign securities in our country are allowed for trading by the regulator or made eligible for trading. It means that any foreign security that is entered into our account may be put into owner's account and will be covered by the services which are listed to the left. If it is not eligible for trading, it can be put into the account, withdrawn from the account. We service the reception of income or redemption amounts, anything that does not involve trading. There are certain exemptions, including posterity, legal succession, court decision, etc. But those exceptions are not really used, have not been triggered because there are not many cases yet. And there are also eligible for trading securities. So they enjoy the same services as the others, but additionally, the owner can have the securities traded both through exchange and on the OTC market, and they can also be used as collateral. As of the end of May, 31 issuers of foreign accounts are registered with us, and 21 of them are already eligible for trading. And the regulator now has a whole bunch of applications from other issuers. The way it looked before, the foreign issuer would file in an application, and then it goes through the central depository. Through the central depository, the central bank would address, well, it never rejected any application. Then the securities were put into the account, or if they're already on the account, they were just unblocked for trading. And then what followed was a standard trading process, the same way as concerns domestic securities. And that was before the legislative change. And now, after that change, the foreign depository institution can the depository institution in Ukraine can have an account opened with a foreign depository institution, provided that it is registered in one of the EU country or is a member of FATF. So this liberalization allowed depositories to broaden their services. Before that, the only thing they could do was to put the security in custody, so they to put enter them to the account, and still the securities were not eligible for trading. Now that the approval is given to now with this possibility to open the account abroad and liberalization of securities trading, foreign issuers can operate within the depository institution in Ukraine. Still, they don't have direct access to the exchange because these securities are not in the depository system in Ukraine. They're still registered with the foreign depository institution. Still, this arrangement is becoming increasingly popular among foreign investors. This is the new arrangement, quite complex, but it explains how foreign securities can become eligible for trading. Any professional market participant can directly access the regulator, well, like in most countries, those are professional marketplace are trading companies, exchangers, etc. And they receive approval for trading. Also, the foreign issuer works through the central depository system. Also, there is a depository institution involved. And this, from this moment, the security can be moved through the depository system. And now either the securities are tradable, are movable throughout the depository system, through the exchange or OTC market, then the security can change accounts both within the depository institution and also between different depository institutions. Well, that's all I wanted to tell you about. We're currently in the process of finalizing special tax treatment. And so my request for you, if you have any ideas how this can be done, these are my contact details, and please, we will be grateful if you share with us how this can be applied. Thank you and all the best. Well, thank you, Olga, for your presentation, and we also wish you a good day, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see each other later. And the final speaker for today and for the whole seminar as such, as well as this session, will be from an NSD, Larisa Resnyanska, who will tell us how the NSD adapts to foreign legislation. Thank you, Arman, and welcome, colleagues. Well, it's a special role, a special honor to be the final speaker of the seminar. So I'm Larisa Resnyanska. I had the product department at NSD. Today, I would like to share with you the way that NSD adapts to the new regulation of EU, that is Central Securities Deposit Regulation, SCDR. I will briefly describe what the regulation is about and why we need to adapt our operations to that set of rules. In the second part of the presentation, I will specify which parts of our operations are to be adapted and how this will affect our clients. The regulation itself was adopted in 2014. Its purpose is to ensure and promote safe, efficient, and smooth settlements, trade settlements in securities markets throughout the European Union. This regulation covers European, national, as well as international depositories, which were mentioned more than once today, the so-called AECSDs, Your Clear Bank, and Clearstream Banking. We will go into more detail with respect to settlement discipline regime. This specifies the regulatory standards to improve trade settlements in European securities markets. This also aims to strengthen the discipline for European depositors. Also in 2018, technical standards were adopted adjacent to this regulation that support the implementation of all the regulations. So we are preparing ourselves for the 1st of February 2022 when this becomes effective. And the following measures are discipline measures are to be implemented. First, it is so-called full STP, that is implement procedures to confirm trade details in real time. Second, encouraging and incentivizing timely settlement of transactions by providing services such as partial settlement and hold and release, which I will explain later. And also a very important, maybe one of the most important parts of this regulation is the requirement to monitor settlement fails and reporting to competent authorities on a regular basis about the number of such failures, the volumes involved, and the application of penalties. There are measures to prevent settlement fails. First, full automation of execution. Second, there's a new mandatory field, and that is the data field for transaction date. That is apart from other mandatory fields. Also, the application of permissible tolerance level There's also a requirement to set up a bilateral cancellation facility and also notification in real time on the transaction settlement status, whether it is fully settled or partially settled, has it been put on hold or cancelled. Measures to address settlement fails. If the measures described on the previous page did not help the counterparty to exercise its obligations fully and in time, these measures include the system of monitoring, and the European Central Depository will inform the competent authorities on the number and value of settlement fails and or any measures that are taken with respect to those participants who do not perform their obligations. Also, what they plan to do is annual public disclosure on settlement fails. There's also a procedure for mandatory cash penalties, which I'll explain later. Let me just say that the penalties are calculated only at the level of European and international depositories, and they concern all European stock market participants in case their settlement location is either local market or CSD, or if it's a bridge between Euroclear and Clearstream. If the transaction is not executed, the regulation specifies the mandatory buy-in procedure, but it's not about corporate action. It's the case when the part of the securities were not delivered by the date of completion of the transaction. So before the buy-in, the participants are given this opportunity to complete the transaction in this period, additional period. For liquid shares, it's 4 business days. For other financial instruments, 7 business days, and for SME growth markets and financial instruments traded there, it's 15 business days. There is some impact that we see on market participants. I must note that those measures concern all participants, because unless we cannot avoid adapting to Euroclear and Clearstream, and also must respond to our update of AECSD. And the way that the clients are affected include new services that will be must be received. There must be improved settlement discipline, full liability on the client's part for settlement fails, and also if any cash penalties are applied, and if a buy-in procedure isn't triggered, this is all the responsibility of the NSD and clients. Just briefly, what changes are taking place at National Settlements Depository? First, it's a hold and release service. This mechanism is implemented for internal settlement within AECSDs, and for Clearstream for external settlement. The idea is that participant in the settlement process can put the instruction on hold if for some reason they don't want the transaction to be executed before they have enough funds. And in this case, the trade can be executed only when both instructions are given the release status. Also, the service will allow partial settlement service, which will available if partial delivery is possible when there are insufficient assets, and is also allowable if both parties agree. You cannot use the partial delivery option unilaterally. A little bit more detail for cash penalties. There are certain conditions for their application. First, there must be matching instructions. The matching instructions must be matched, no differences, and the status of the transactions must be pending, not cancelled, and not put on hold. There are two types of penalties. First is called late matching fail penalty, which will apply to instructions matched after the intended settlement date, and settlement fail penalty, which applies to those participants in the settlement process who did not perform their obligations by the intended settlement day for some reason. Penalties can be applied to both sides of the trade, but it is no zero-sum game case because different rates are applied to the supplier of the security and the payer, but there are some exceptions for European central depositories in deciding whether or not to apply cash penalties to the participants. This slide provides brief information on the cash penalty calculation procedure. You can read that when you have time. So what about NSD response? How we will respond? We will receive statements on penalties applied to our clients from the European central depositories, and we will put those into individual reports to NSD clients. Such information will be provided on a daily basis, and such reports will include details such as the particular instruction that triggered the non-execution procedure, and also details on how the penalty was compiled. The details on penalty is needed for clients if they want to appeal against this measure. This option is provided by European depositories, and then NSD will support the appellate process by delivering the request to the European Central Depository, where the client must specify why they believe the penalty was not appropriate, what the amount should be, or maybe they will explain that it is the counterparty's fault, not theirs. And for this purpose, these penalty details must be communicated. Then, as a result of the reporting period, a month before, the final monthly report will be compiled on all the penalties and any pending penalties that they may receive from the counterparty, because penalties are redistributed between them from the guilty party to the injured party. So this monthly report will in particular indicate the net amount as of the end of the month, which may be either positive or negative, depending on who behaved properly, either the client or the other counterparty. After the penalty settlement is complete through our accounts, we will then implement penalty settlement in the respective currency with our clients. And also NSD will perform certain intermediary role in buy-in if that is relevant, but we're not planning to act as a buy-in agent. That's all I was planning to tell you today, and now I can take any of your questions. If there are no questions, let me just wish you a successful completion of the seminar and the day. Thank you very much. It is true that many of us are preparing our operations, preparing the adaptation of our operations to be in compliance with the European law. It was really relevant information for all. Stay safe and all the best. Now, colleagues, that was the final presentation scheduled in our 3-day seminar of AECSD that was implemented through Zoom. We do hope that the information provided by the speakers was useful for you. And our expectation is that the knowledge that you have received will be applied in practice. If you need any particular contact details of our speakers, you can request them from the AECSD Secretariat. We will certainly help you get into contact with the speakers. I see some questions have emerged, but they're not addressed to today's speakers. We will definitely respond to you offline. Please leave your emails. You can do it through the chat as well. All the seminar materials have been published and they are accessible through the link which we published in the chat. We will also communicate separately the link to each of you. A few presentations, 2 and 3, are still being translated into English. As soon as the translation is ready, we will update the link and you will receive all the information and all the presentations in English. We will also publish this information on the e-learning website, WFC, where you will have a chance not only to view these seminar materials, but also those of other seminars, not only our association, but other central depository associations which exist as of today. I would like to address our special gratitude to all the speakers of the 3-day seminar for their very up to the point and very interesting presentations. We hope we will continue to work with you further on. You can leave your feedback in the chat or send your feedback through the secretariat. We'll be happy to hear from you what you liked most, what you didn't like, if there's anything, or maybe what we can do better. Any advice on their part is valuable. And let me also say that even if we are not meeting one-on-one, face-to-face, but online, this is still very valuable and useful. This is a great opportunity to exchange knowledge, information, to see each other, to meet each other if we have not met before, to establish new contacts and find new ways to cooperate. It is my hope, and like everyone's hope, that the pandemic situation will improve in the foreseeable future and that subsequent activities will be organized offline. But probably we will also rely on some hybrid format because online communication enables more participants to get connected and to share what you have to share. On behalf of the Secretariat, we once again thank all of you who participated and all the speakers. We wish you good health, stay safe, have a great end of the day and have a great weekend. And we will remain in touch and see all of you sometime later.